She had shared with me that she had another meeting, but that she thought she could make this work. No, excuse me, that wasn't for this meeting. That's for the meeting either tomorrow or the day after. So, um, yeah, okay,
Their calendar shows a meeting that ends right now, so she might be.
okay. Okay, well, Matt, let's go ahead and and get started and we can start. I think we probably need to start with introductions, new project, new group, some new faces. So, um,
Yeah.
do you have anything to say, Matt, before we start with introductions, or should I just
Why,
kick
why
it
don't
off?
you why don't you start with the room there, and then we'll go online and we'll hit that route.
Perfect. Okay, so there's Dawn. We have maybe another 2 seconds before we start introductions. Okay, so yeah, first meeting of the Main Street Interchange Area Management Plan, our refinement process for the city of Boardman. This is our technical advisory committee meeting number 1, June 9th. So yeah, introductions. Carl McLean, planning official here for the city of Boardman. And also in the room we have
Jacob Kane, professional engineer representing
Port Morrow.
Port Morrow.
Tim Helvig, civil engineer, also at Port Morrow.
Okay, and
Jeremy Gerke with Boardman Fire.
okay.
Is that everybody in the room?
That's everybody in the room. So let's catch folks. I'll try to follow down the list here, but it always moves around. So, well, Matt, I'm going to save you for last. So let's start with Andy Lindsay.
Hi, Andy Lindsay with Anderson Perry and Associates from LeGrand here on behalf of City of Boardman.
Right. Dawn.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dawn Hurt. I am Dawn Hurt. Sorry. I'm the Eastern Oregon Regional Rep with the Department of Land Conservation and Development. Glad to be here. Thanks.
Right. Brian Wood.
Good afternoon. I'm Brian Wood. I'm with ODOT. I'm with headquarters with the branch of technical services.
Kelly.
Kelly Martin with ODOT. I'm the access management engineer, and I'm also involved in development review.
And then Marlo.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Marlo Stanton. I'm the Region 5 traffic engineer with ODOT.
And Paul.
Good afternoon. I'm Paul Holland. I'm the assistant district manager out of Pendleton with ODOT.
Stephen.
Stephen Davis, transit manager for Morrow County.
And Teresa.
Hi, I'm Teresa Pettigrew, I'm the planning manager for ODOT.
Now actually it looks like, Stephanie has joined.
Good afternoon, Stephanie Case, Principal Planner at City of Boardman.
For 20 more days. All right. And
Not
then,
that Carla's counting.
did I miss anybody else other than Matt?
Lindsay McCullough is on the phone. She says she's having technical difficulties. She's ODOT region roadway designer.
Oh, okay. I did see somebody pop in, but I'm not seeing them on the list. Okay. Thank you. And with that, Brian has raised his hand.
Just I think he's probably going to join a little bit late, but Aaron Mighton with ODOT will be doing some of the review on this as well. So I just wanted to kind of mention his name. He's the interchange engineer for ODOT.
Okay, perfect. And we just had 2 more people arrive in the room. So we're going to do introductions. Introduce yourself.
Chief Stocco. Captain Dieter.
Hey. That looks like we have a member of the public who is joining us. So, all right. So Matt, I'm going to throw it back to you to go ahead and introduce yourself and start the presentation.
Yeah, hi, everybody. I think I've met most, if not all of you, at some point. Matt Hugart with Kittleson and Associates. Long history of working in Boardman, most recently helped the city prepare the update to the 2025 transportation system plan. So the project that we're going to be talking about today was kind of born out of that TSP. And if you haven't learned of it by now, it's the Main Street Interchange Area Refinement Plan. And this is not a new planning effort. It is basically an update, a city-funded update to a plan that was prepared and adopted back in the 2008, 2009 time period. So it's about a 17, 18-year-old planning effort that we're going to dust off and update. And I'll get into some more details about the rationale for the update here, but I'm going to actually share my screen and start a quick, just a visual presentation to look at for everybody, and we'll go from there. And Carla, can you just confirm verbally that you can see this?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. All right. So just getting going here. Just thought I'd start off with a visual. I hate to see PowerPoint presentations that are just nothing but words and text. So these are some photos that we've already collected of the interchange. We had a drone pilot go out a week and a half ago and get a lot of good shots of the interchange and the roadways serving that interchange, not knowing what we were going to use them for, but knowing at some point we were going to need some good visuals and some good perspectives to understand and really get to the crux of some of the issues and the challenges associated with this interchange. So I've got a lot of photos. I got about 200 of them, a lot more than I've sampled here, but just know we've got some photos that we'll be using and can share with everybody, including ODOT, over the course of this project, just to use as needed. Okay, so we've already gone introductions. So the agenda today is really kind of focused on 4 things, talking about our project schedule and the roles of this committee. We'll go through our first deliverable, which was titled the Definition and Backgrounds document. And I believe that should have been forwarded or made available to everybody as for this meeting. Then we'll talk about some desired outcomes, kind of go around the room and talk about what everybody understands to be their own sort of understanding and challenges associated with this interchange. And perhaps if you've got some ideas, we can talk about those. And then break with next steps. I promise we won't go more than an hour and a half. So by 3:30, we'll be done. So let you get on the rest of your day. So I thought we'll just hit schedule real quick. So when the city decided to self-fund this effort, they really wanted to complete it on a pretty aggressive schedule. So we are striving to get this thing done, if not by the end of the calendar year, shortly thereafter. We are hoping to get this full IAMP reviewed and adopted, starting in the kind of late November, December-ish time period, assuming final adoption, maybe spilling over into January of 2027. But it's a fairly aggressive schedule. We believe we can do it. Simply because this is not a new start from scratch planning effort. A lot of the data and a lot of the analysis that's going to inform this update was completed as part of the TSP. So in order to save sort of time, schedule, and budget, it was decided early on that there was a robust enough planning effort with the TSP such that we could use all of the existing traffic conditions and forecasting work that was developed from that 2025 effort. So it's given that it hasn't even been a year old since a lot of that effort was done, it can just be rolled into this project. So a lot of the steps of planning and policy review and existing conditions analysis, we can skip all that and just get straight to interchange concepts and improvement concepts. So that's the nice part. And so as a result, it allows us to kind of accelerate our project schedule. So in June 2026 is where we are now. We're going over Tech Memo number 1. Just to round out the month, we, the consultant team and city staff, will be starting some small group outreach meetings with some property owners and business owners in the interchange, just to kind of give those groups some face time with the project, one-on-one face time with the project, so we can learn about the challenges and the issues that they're facing as a business, and how we can accommodate some of their issues and desires and concerns in the planning process. So that'll round out the month of June. In July, we'll come back and we'll be reviewing Tech Memo number 2, which is where we kind of look at some alternatives evaluation. And we'll have an online open house and a joint planning commission city council work session. So that will be in probably the latter part of July. And August will be sort of a continuing work month for us as we finalize Tech Memo 2 and work towards development of a preferred concept for modifying the interchange and the access and the local circulation. And then coming back with this group in September to review that preferred alternative. And then lastly, coming back in late October, ideally, to look at a final or a draft of the IAMP refinement. So again, quick and snappy on the schedule. And I think we can complete that within that calendar year. So any questions on the schedule? I know we haven't really got into the details yet, but does that generate any concerns or questions from anybody? Okay. We'll come back to that if we need to. Okay, well, first and foremost, thank you for your time here today. You're a part of the Technical Advisory Committee. So if you haven't figured that out by now, it's professional leaning committee in terms of providing opportunity for partnering agencies and city staff and county staff and other agencies who manage or are in charge of sort of the operations of the city and or the infrastructure. So your role on this project is to be our local voice and our local technical expert. Help us as we navigate the technical challenges of looking at access management, traffic operations, interchange design, local circulation, anything that pops into your area of expertise, and help guide the analysis and ask important questions. We're not always the experts. We try and be, but we also know that we are consultants, and sometimes we need additional guidance and input and insight that we haven't been able to glean. So we lean heavily on this group to provide us with that technical expertise and guidance as we go through the project. So that will be provided mostly through participation in this meeting and review of the technical memos and materials that we produce throughout the rest of the project. So I know most everybody has served on a committee like this before, so probably not saying anything you haven't heard a couple hundred times before. We also hope and are expecting participation in all TAC meetings going forward. And providing your comments throughout those meetings and on those memos, we'll all have a better product at the end of the day. Any questions on rules? Again, it's pretty straightforward in terms of how we're going to treat it.
So Matt, I wanted to chime in here for just a second. This is Carla, for those of you that, can't see what's going on the screen or whatever. There's a couple people in the room and a couple of people online. And I just want to make sure that we have kind of an understanding of, why'd you get tapped? Why were you asked to participate on this? So Chief Stocco stepped out, but Mr. Dieter is still in the room. We wanted law enforcement in the room because we know we have issues with that interchange and the area around it. And what are the safety concerns that you're seeing now? This is an opportunity to get them truly documented and identified. And same thing to Mr. Gerke at the end of the table down there with the fire department. It's kind of the same thing. What are you seeing? What do we need to know? If we make changes, how does it affect how you operate? We know we need to be able to accommodate a ladder truck in the system. And so how does that happen? Those are the questions. So, if a roundabout is an alternative, how does that function? How does that affect what you guys do? The same thing would be to Mr. Davis, who's joined us from Morrow County. He's our county transit point of contact and administrative lead. So, how does transit get around? And as we make changes to the interchange area, how does that affect transit? How do we make sure that we can still accommodate the need to move people from the north side of the freeway to the south side? Port Morrow, we're going to need to have conversations about high, wide, and heavy. So how do we move things into and out of Boardman, and how much of it is going to have to go through this interchange? And are there other options? Who am I missing? Let's see, on the technical side. Mr. Lindsay, he's with Anderson Perry, so he's another rep on the city engineering side for us. It's all of those questions for him to make sure we're checking the boxes. ODOT folks, you kind of know what your role is here. And then Dawn, I just need your help making sure that we steer the ship in the right way relative to thread and all the land use issues that we have. So I guess I would just add to that review of your role with those kind of comments. I cannot encourage you all enough to share. When you read one of those draft memos, please take a look at them, read them. Let me know what your comments are. If you're seeing something out there that's concerning, share that with us so we can, again, this is an opportunity to document what the issues are. My concern is that for this little area, we maybe haven't done a good enough job of documenting what the concerns are. And so if we can get that done and pull it in and identify them, this is a good place to do that. Matt, would you add anything to that relative to roles?
No, that's a good summary.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay, well, we've kind of skirted the issue. Now it's time to get to the heart of why we're all here today. I'm going to operate in the assumption that not everybody in the room knows the history of this interchange and the previous planning efforts. So if you do, just be patient. This is mostly just for bringing everybody up to speed. So first of all, if you're not familiar with the term Interchange Area Management Plan, or IAMP for short, it is a kind of a state of Oregon required planning document that is designed to plan for the long-term preservation and function of interchanges, and primarily interchanges on the state system. So they can be kind of the highest order of interchanges, such as interchanges on the interstate system, but they can also apply to interchanges involving lower tiered state highways and local and county facilities. So it's not always just interchanges on the interstate system, but a lot of the plans and the IAMPs that have been done to date do indeed fall along the major interstate interchanges. That preservation of long-term function goes in a lot of different ways, such as making sure that the interchange design from a geometric standpoint or a traffic control standpoint is functioning and will continue to function over time as development and traffic patterns change. It also has to do not just with capacity and geometry, but it goes into kind of what we call the local access side of things. So you can picture any interchange from your memory banks. those interchanges almost always intersect with a local or lower order highway. In this case, it's Main Street. And then from Main Street, that connects to any number of local arterials and collectors and local streets. So within the sort of the interchange planning area of the traffic engineering world, it goes beyond the interchange, and it looks at how the local system intersects with the main street connector, and then how that then intersects and connects to the interchange. So that's part of what they call the local circulation or the access management component. And then making sure that the connections to those properties that are served by that interchange are robust and efficient and sufficiently planned so that the local streets and the driveways that serve the properties are designed in a way that it doesn't impact the safety and the operations of the interchange terminals and the streets that lead to and from it. And then lastly, a lot of these IAMPs actually have what we call a land use component to them. So sometimes, you can't build yourself out of congestion, or you can't always design infrastructure to maximize the development potential. So in rare cases, the interchange area management plans have a land use component to it, where if we can't build ourselves out of the capacity limitation, perhaps we can limit the land use components to ensure that the interchange will continue to function. So that, I think, is kind of the five-legged component of what goes into your typical IAMP. As I mentioned before, there already has and was and is an adopted IAMP for this interchange. It was done back in 2009. The cover page here is a snip of the cover page. But that IAMP focused on street connectivity, and in particular enhancing the local street connectivity on the south side of the interchange. And if you've been kind of watching the bulldozers go in Boardman for the last year or so, you've seen a lot of that local street connectivity get established through the hard work of the city and their engineering staff. A lot of that envisioned street connectivity is being implemented. And it talks about the connections. Most of them have already been implemented. Talks about access management on Main Street. So I'll get some visuals here in a second, but if you know this interchange well, you'll know that Front Street on the north side and the south side is anywhere from 75 to 100 feet away from the eastbound and the westbound ramp terminals. So that is not really ideal from an access and safety and operations perspective. So there's been a lot of planning that goes into identifying how to treat those Front Street intersections over time. So a lot of that is currently embedded in the IAMP. And then lastly, it was also recognized back in 2009 and reinforced in the most recent TSP that the interchange, basically does have some geometric constraints, some capacity constraints. So that's reflected in the IAMP with a recognition that at some point in the future, there would need to be some geometric modifications and some traffic control improvements at either the east and westbound ramp terminals and the Main Street overpass. So that's all nothing new, but it's currently in the TSP. Here's a little bit of a visual on what that street connectivity looks like. So a lot of the streets that I'm outlining with my cursor here have already been built very recently, including this Southwest First Street and this westerly extension of Oregon Trail Boulevard. And then back in 2004, 2005, the Southeast First Street connection was constructed back to the existing segment of Oregon Trail Boulevard. So all of this local street collector level connections have already been built by the city. And they're already starting to see some development applications come in for development on a lot of these parcels. And so those are ongoing as we speak. The north side was what's already much more established in terms of its local street plan. So there wasn't a lot of new infrastructure from a circulation component plan for the north side, but it's recognized that it had a much more established set of roadways that could be utilized and planned for going forward. So that's all in the TSP, and the city's been working hard to implement it. As far as the interchange and the interchange ramps go and traffic control, these are two graphics from the IAMP. The one on the left is the short and midterm range improvements as envisioned back in 2009, and the one on the right is the longer term vision. So in the near term, it was identified or recognized that the westbound off-ramp would need to be widened from a single lane off-ramp as it approached the Main Street intersection, so that you can get separate left and right lanes at the ramp terminal. So that widening of the westbound and the eastbound off-ramps were already included in the IAMP. And then I think it was envisioned or realized that at some point in the fairly near future, development and development pressures on both the South and North Front Street intersections would require those intersections to have some access turn restrictions, turning both of them into effective kind of right in, right out intersections as opposed to their current full access. So all that was envisioned as being short and mid-range. None of that has been implemented to date, but there's been some more recent discussions on the potential near-term need for that. In the long term, and again, this is all back in the 2009 IAMP, going beyond these short mid-range improvements, the thought is at some point, right in, right out at North and South Front Streets would not be enough, and full disconnection of those streets potentially would be necessary. In addition, traffic control or traffic demands at the ramp terminals would be significant enough to where at least at the westbound terminal, there would need to be installation or accommodation for, at the time, it was identified as a traffic signal at that westbound ramp terminal. And also with that traffic control, recognize that the two-lane bridge over the highway would not be sufficient for accommodating turn movements to and from those interchange ramps on the on-ramps. So kind of aspirationally identified a widening of the Main Street overpass to at least get a minimum of 3 lanes on that overpass. So this was all part of the 2009 IAMP, and nothing on this, conceptually envisioned on these graphics here has been implemented to date. Okay, any questions on kind of the history of the 2009 IAMP? I know, Teresa, you were part of that planning effort. So is there any background or history you want to share? I think you might be one of the few people on the call that that had a hand in the documentation of this this previous IAMP.
The only thing I would add to what you were indicating, Matt, was so as you saw before, in the slide before where it made the connecting roads to the roads and that sort of thing, those were required before we would even move to facilitating the right in and right out or the closure of the North and South Front Street. So that was kind of contingent upon those being developed, just to provide the circulation and the ability to get back around and back out to the interchange. So just wanted to clear that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think it was recognized that any kind of turn movement restriction or access management implementation along Main Street would need to have some sort of backage road or completed circulation system, so that these southeast and southwest Front Street connections and the Oregon Trail Boulevard extension opens up the potential for implementation of more strict or stringent access management restrictions along the Main Street. So yeah, I think that's a good point. Thank you.
Matt, Chief Stokel, Boardman, please.
Yes.
Do you have any idea of during the IAMP 2009 what the traffic flows were on the Main Street and those off ramps compared to what they are today?
I don't have anything at my fingertips, so any number I spit out would just be a guess, but I believe traffic volumes just from my own work on the TSP has grown significantly since that time. A lot of new residential development and growth in South Boardman, and then the continued expansion of the Port of Morrow has generally increased volumes fairly significantly throughout Boardman, but in particular the Main Street corridor. So I think I'm pretty confident in saying that yes, volumes have grown probably faster and more significantly than the 2009 IAMP originally envisioned.
Thank you.
Okay.
Matt, the
yeah,
IAMP did anticipate failure in 2026 from a safety perspective for queue length. So it's about right on time. And the only comment I wanted to make about the volumes that were utilized in the TSP was that didn't take into account a lot of the in-process traffic from development that should be considered in this work.
Yeah, thank you. And sorry, is that Kelly? Is that you were talking, Kelly?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep, it's me.
Yeah, so I was cycling through my my windows here to remember who was talking. So yeah, you're right, Kelly. I think well, let me get into the TSP and I'll hit upon what Kelly's pointing out here in a second. Okay, so just recently, project led by myself. And by the way, I see my colleague Isa Andrews has joined us. Isa worked on the TSP with me, and she'll be working with me again on this IAMP update. So just want to recognize her. She's on the call. In 2004, 2025, we worked on an update to the Boardman TSP. And I won't get into the nuances of it other than to say that it's sort of re-emphasized and re-recognized a lot of the operational challenges that the 2009 IAMP had identified. But there's been, I think, some additional new challenges that were identified in that planning effort that go beyond the scope and the identification of what was done in 2009. So the first of which is, I think we've identified what we consider to be a much nearer term need for some of those interchange improvements. Rather than those being 10, 15, 20-year improvements, they're kind of now improvements in a lot of ways, at least in terms of the capacity challenges and the queuing challenges that those ramp terminals are experiencing. Those are kind of now problems. They're not tomorrow or 5 or 10-year problems. And that's a reflection of a lot of the development that Boardman has been seeing and continues to see on the application side. The second one here, the second sub-bullet down here is something that that has always been on ODOT's radar, but wasn't necessarily identified in the 2009 IAMP was the clearance issues, the vertical clearance issues that the existing overpass has, Main Street overpass, in particular the eastbound direction on I-84. And someone on the call from ODOT probably can attest to this. I think they were out there just a couple of weeks ago putting on some repair work from a vehicle, oversized height vehicle strike. But that that eastbound approach on the freeway has some clearance issues that limit the overheight trailers and haul overheight trucks from adequately clearing the interchange. So does anyone on the call from ODOT want to speak to that in a lot more educated detail? Well, yeah, okay. I don't know if anyone has. I know that there's been any number of strikes over the years, and so the overheight issue is something that was never formally recognized in the 2009 IAMP, but ODOT understands it and does know about it. But we're going to bring it to, I think, a greater light as part of this planning effort here.
And I have spoken to our region bridge engineer about this, and yes, the bridge is being struck, a handful of times. It's not a high priority issue for ODOT. The bridge is, I'm told, built super stout and it takes these hits just fine. What else will do? Fix them. I'm not saying it's not a problem, just saying that ODOT has no current plans to do anything about that. And my understanding is actually that a lot of the loads that have hit it could have cleared it, but they just didn't lower it with a mountain excavator or whatever when they got off the Tower Road with the east, because there's other bridges they could have hit. So it's kind of a localized challenge there with, you know, the development going on out of Tower Road. It appears.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Marla. Okay, and then I think as we've kind of alluded more locally with the city, I think there's been some much greater sort of momentum and need to try and install traffic control treatments at the Main Street and Boardman Avenue interchange. It was kind of the first major intersection on the north side of the interchange. And the city has attempted to make some modifications there over time, and it's been kind of punted at least through the duration of this planning effort. But that was not identified in the 2009 IAMP. So yeah, those are kind of the newer challenges that we recognize that came out of the TSP. And then as part of that TSP, we also spent quite a bit of time and some very specific outreach efforts talking to some business owners along the north and south sides of the interchange. And I think these are not new issues, but they continue to be kind of newer challenges for these businesses. And I think they kind of boil down to if and when access restrictions are ever implemented at north and south intersections on Main Street, north and south of the interchange, to the tune of potentially something like right in, right out access at the South Front Street intersections. While these backage roads and these connections are in place and they do provide an opportunity for someone who, for example, is coming southbound on Main Street and turns right and visits one of these businesses, if lefts out are restricted, it will require at least, you know, some out of direction travel to the Southwest First Street and back to Oregon Trail Boulevard, and making a left, you know, to kind of get back to the freeway, recognizing a lot of these are freeway oriented businesses with customers who may not be familiar with the local circulation pattern. I think a lot of business owners are concerned that implementation of access restrictions or turn restrictions through here will require some unfamiliar out of direction, particularly I think in Southeast Front Street. If you can't make a left in here, you know, your expectation is you would travel down to Oregon Trail Boulevard, make a left here, go east, and then make a left on the Southeast First Street and circumnavigate quite a ways out of direction to get to one or more of those property owners. That's what we're hearing from these groups. Is I think they're just continuing to be concerned about potential implementation of the envisioned access restrictions or access management elements. And I'm not saying that that's not anything that they haven't known about or haven't potentially been expecting or could be expecting, but it's just passing along the information that we've been hearing, and we will continue to probably expect to hear as we do additional business owner outreach as part of this planning effort.
You're right, Matt, excuse me. I was just on a meeting with Nick. So anyway, in 2009, yeah, there was the committee that got formed to help identify the improvements for the 2009 IAMP. Multiple of those were business owners on Front Street. And, you know, certainly their concerns were expressed in as well. I think where they were able to get to the backage roads and the circulation and possibly even the connection of Crag Drive, that's identified as a kind of interim location, was the fact of, you know, good access means good business. Because they realized if it got to a point where it was back up in front of those front streets, or just wasn't safe getting out, they could lose business. just as much as, you know, having, or probably maybe even more than having the limited right in, right out, or, you know, type of thing. And then, of course, it wasn't until, you know, the only thing that really resolved that would be eventually, you know, having to close the entrance into Front Street as a long-term measure, you know, because you would signalize the ramps, and that would kind of force the closure of the front streets. So there's all, you know, thinking through it. I mean, there was a lot of discussion about it back then, but the recognition of moving forward with these improvements, that was the best solution that we could do at the time, and there's to address it without. Eventually, you would get to widening the bridge, because if you signalize, you would have to the lanes for determining units. And basically, the other thing too was at the time, we didn't have a lot of concepts that we could pull from, to use at these Front Street intersections. We didn't, didn't have roundabouts, so we didn't have some of the other types of concepts that might be there today with some of these really urbanizing type, space changes. So.
Yep. Thank you, Teresa, for that background. And I don't think it's a stretch maybe to assume that maybe some of those property owners that were involved back in 2009 may not be around today. Some of these properties could have sold, new businesses, new management staff, new perspectives, taken over from family, who knows what. But 17 years doesn't seem like a long time, but I think it does. A lot of history is lost to time, and a lot of those details, a lot of those understandings. So I think we understand and accept the challenge of kind of the notion of having to reestablish and reconnect and rebuild some of those concepts and the rationale for them going forward. Okay, here's just a couple of quick visuals. So here's that westbound off-ramp. As you can see, it's just a single lane off-ramp. When I took this photo, I was pretty much standing at the interchange terminal, so you don't get much of a left and right turn lane as you come to the ramp terminal itself. This is a picture that someone on the City of Boardman staff took last year when one of those high, wide, and heavy trucks that comes out of the Port of Morrow was circumnavigating, and this is just on the north side. And so you can see they routinely deal with oversized and overlength and overheight vehicles. I think Jacob probably can speak to that here in a minute. I'll give you the floor, Jacob, to talk about what the port needs and what it expects out of this interchange. The image on the top right here, this is just, you can see some of these historical strikes. I don't believe this sign exists anymore. I think it was a casualty of one of the more recent hits, if it hasn't been reinstalled yet. So that's just one of the kind of the height limitations. And then this image on the bottom right here just kind of illustrates that, yeah, this is really only a 2-lane bridge with, while I think a bike lane was striped on the bridge itself, I don't think it's much of a bike lane. I think it's edge of stripe to face of curb is not more than about 3.5 feet. So, and then it's pretty narrow, 4.5 foot sidewalk both sides. So certainly has its capacity and multimodal limitations going forward. So a number of the challenges that we're facing. Jacob, I teed you up. Anything you want to share regarding the Port of Morrow's use of the interchange in terms of the oversized and overheight accommodations?
Sure. I think, basically that interchange serves as everything coming out of the port going west from an over-dimensional to overweight standpoint. If it's coming from the port, it's going to head west along the I-84 corridor. We normally use the on-ramp onto I-84 to go west. That's the primary function of that movement. Most of our overlength and overweight loads that are going east, we try to route them a different direction. They go out through Lewis and Clark to Highway 730, but the primary movement to go west is through this interchange. And there is a significantly more of those over-dimensional loads going east than west, but we have recently taken some transformers to Cardi and some of the more local developments out at the airport.
Great, thank you. And I think what Jacob was referring to is what comes out of the port, but not all overheight and overweight vehicles are generated by the port. Some of them are just going east-west on the I-84 corridor. And so because of the anything that's height restricted by the overpass, historically has used the off-ramp, the eastbound off-ramp, and then just gotten back on the eastbound on-ramp when they can't make the clearance. So I think from a dimensional standpoint, any kind of physical improvement or traffic control improvement, be it a roundabout or a signal or a geometry modification, I think there's probably an expectation from the mobility advisory group that we maintain the ability to continue to use the on and off ramps to circumnavigate the height limitations or clearance issues. So yeah, all that kind of came to light again through the TSP efforts.
Matt, on
Yeah.
that use of the eastbound lane, when they take that off ramp off and then just go over and get back on, the geometry also it's not great either. Granted, they're not hitting the bridge, but they are causing some significant damage to the roadway. You can see gouges. I mean, so because if they're a high-low, they're running a really low trailer, and so they are catching, again, because of the geometry of the end of the off-ramp over the travel lanes and back onto the on-ramp, they are causing damage to the road itself. So damage happens both directions, or same direction, both routes, I guess. So
Yep, good points. Thank you. Okay, kind of just getting back on pace here. So the Boardman TSP identified, basically the Boardman TSP recognized that the challenges associated with the IAMP itself and updating the IAMP were too significant, too great, and too costly for trying to incorporate them within the TSP planning effort. So the TSP essentially identified an IAMP refinement, which is why we're here today. So this is a city funded update of that previous IAMP. And it's represented in Project R25 from the city's TSP. So the city wasted no time finding their own dollars to self-fund this update. And the hope is that we can generate a more robust and complete planning document that will shape the future of this interchange. I won't go so far as to say exactly what I think that looks like, but I've got some ideas. But I definitely think it involves some modernization or recognition of some alternative intersection and traffic control treatments at the ramp terminals and the local streets. And then kind of looking at expanding kind of the connectivity and the access management component, or at least revisiting it in a way that might allow for an ability to appease or address some of the concerns from property owners that are concerned about that out of direction, out of site travel connectivity that might occur as a result of access management implementations. Okay, so this kind of gets into the tech memo number one, is, kind of going through all that background. What does this group really wants to see this IAMP accomplish? I put some teaser statements on the screen here. And this is a little bit more of just from the planning of the TSP and what I heard and saw from property owners and constituents. But my teaser statements are a more refined interchange improvement plan and cost estimate. A funding mechanism, I think, in place so that we don't restrict or put a moratorium on development. I think that is a very real possibility if we can't find a way to address near-term operational challenges and find a way to pay for them, either through development or proportionate share contributions. I think the city could very well find itself in a position of having to deny developments, particularly the development that is essentially focused in and around the interchange, knowing that, you know, not ODOT and others don't have money set aside currently to help pay for interchange modifications. So some kind of localized, agreed upon funding mechanism between the city, ODOT, and other jurisdictions to help offset those costs over time. And then lastly, kind of a refined access management plan that deals with out of direction, out of travel. So just some teaser statements from me. Hopefully I've generated some thoughts, but I don't think we've got time to go through everybody on the call here. But if you do have some thoughts or ideas on what you think this planning effort should try and accomplish, we'd love to hear about it. So I'll open the floor and give people an opportunity to share some of their thoughts or concerns. And maybe I'll go back to Kelly. I'm going to pick on her a little bit and give everybody some time to think about their own concerns or thoughts. But Kelly mentioned earlier in the call that she's seen as a development review engineer for the state. Some of the newer applications, land use applications that the city's getting and having to deal with traffic studies associated with those. So Kelly, do you want to reiterate your statement from before and kind of talk about your thoughts and ideas on how this IAMP can work within the development application process to kind of bridge the gap that currently exists?
Sure. I think what we have discovered somewhat expectantly and somewhat unexpectedly is that the interchange is it's already failing from a VC capacity standpoint, and that development that has been approved and anticipated to be approved results in queue lengths that extend into the deceleration zone of the ramps. And so it poses an immediate safety concern for us. The TSP numbers are low in regards to the VC ratio at the interchange ramps, just because they didn't include that in-process traffic that had already been approved. And there has been a little bit more, or than anticipated to be a little bit more before we are done here with this IAMP. So my hope would be that we get a good solution and a funding mechanism in place so that the city of Boardman can accomplish these improvements and we can move forward with all of the anticipated development that could happen over the next 20 to 30 years here in Boardman and get a good solution in place. From the access management perspective, I would just like to see a little bit of an improvement from the old IAMP in some more objective criteria for when the triggers need to take place, and a solution that would incorporate front streets, if at all possible, to at least keep them at the right in, right out, and not go toward the full closure unless we really, really need to.
Yeah, thank you. And just to point something out, and Kelly, I think you probably know this, when we did the TSP, I don't think we had all of the current developments, approved development projects at our disposal at the time. So when Isa and I were looking at the forecasting work, we did our best to kind of estimate what some of these undeveloped parcels might look like, but certainly we didn't anticipate some of the more recent applications that we've seen involving some pretty high value fast food restaurants and other things. So it was more of a projection more than it was a detailed blanketing of all possible projects that could conceivably be built out here. But based on sort of the gravity and the momentum of these applications, I agree. There's a lot more development potential that is on the cusp of going in on this interchange than the TSP had anticipated. And I think as part of that, the knowledge of that, we can kind of backfill that volume, those holes in this planning process to make sure that the more realistic trip potential from some of these parcels in the southwest quadrant are more accurately built into the planning process.
The only other thing I would like to mention is I know we always define an IAMP management area, but really most of the traffic here is going to hit one interchange or the other. And so I don't think it's really limited to that box that we typically analyze. Although I know that as Boardman has been really good about building out their local network, we're going to see a little bit more of that local traffic pattern. But even at that, the TIA analysis that we have done recently still send a pretty significant chunk of traffic up to the interchange itself.
Yeah, I'm going to zip forward to a couple of slides here. I queued up a bunch of slides. So this was, it's a little blurry and zoomed out quite a bit more, but the Main Street interchange is right here as being circled by my cursor. And as far as the TSP went, everything that you see outlined in red represents one or more parcels that the city staff and our project advisory groups had identified as reasonably likely to build out in some way, shape, or form within the 20-year horizon of the TSP. And while these boxes don't look like much, and certainly there are a lot of parcels in the city that don't have a red box around them, I think this was an assumption of reasonable likelihood of infiltration of development over at least the 20-year planning horizon of the more recent TSP. So every one of those boxes has some kind of land use development and assumption behind it, and then an expectation of trip threshold and trip impacts that were then kind of routed, sort of a poor man's planning model to and around and through the city. So all those red boxes represent potential assumed development in the city, and while we guesstimated in a lot of cases, I think a lot of the reality of development is probably a little more aggressive, at least than what we had assumed and estimated. So I do think, though, that we did a pretty decent job of at least estimating some pretty significant traffic growth on the south side of Boardman, and recognizing that most of that demand, if not all of it, is more or less going to be focused back to and along the Main Street corridor, and then hitting its regional connectivity needs via the Main Street interchange. So a lot of what we had assumed in the TSP is reflected there. It's just there's some more specificity in the more recent development applications that we'll need to account for. So. But thank you, Kelly. All good points, and appreciate that. Anybody else on the call with some particular thoughts or interests or concerns they'd like to see this planning effort take a shot at?
Yeah, Matt. Oh, go ahead.
I have one just thought that may seem trivial at this, but I do think that if we treat each of the front street roads independently, treat northeast and northwest independently, that may enable us to be more creative and perhaps more flexible in terms of the outcome. Because from where I sit, there is a big difference between southeast front street and southwest front street, and if we treat them differently, we may be able to be more accommodating to some folks instead of just lumping the other southeast and south.
Marlo, I think I caught most of that, but let me repeat what I thought I heard because it's a little garbled. I think what you're saying is as we look at southeast and southwest front street, from an access management perspective, they're not equal. Is that kind of what I'm hearing? And so when you potentially access restrict one, it's not as impactful to the other, or vice versa. So Did I capture that right?
Yeah, and I would say the same for the north side too, even if it maybe the emphasis and the greater concerns on the south side. I would treat them as four independent things, or interdependent. Can
Yeah.
be different.
Yep, that makes sense. Thanks for that comment. So. Okay, Carla, somebody in the room was about ready to speak up. I don't quite remember who it was, or couldn't tell who it was.
Matt, Chief Stokoe again. So I several comments, I guess. I would say that I think in 2024, I provided a written document outlining several concerns about the different intersections along there to the city. And I think we had a public hearing back in which.
Yeah, it's probably as part of the record for the light, when we were looking at the light. So if you don't have that, Matt, I can probably go find it. But yes.
And I can reinvigorate that document and also address some of the inquiries. But I would tell you that I'm pretty sure that the IAMP in 2006 probably didn't even come close to counting the traffic flows that we have today. In our last traffic count, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, we have a little over 8,000 vehicles a day on Main Street, which on that Main Street is quite a few vehicles. That would not probably count the vehicles that are coming off the freeway using our local gas stations on the four corners or the services there. This is just on Main Street. So you can almost guarantee that number is probably going to be even higher if you were to count those vehicles. Mm-hmm. I have several concerns about the heavy traffic volume, the poor visibility, especially on the overpass when vehicles are trying to pull out from the overpass. They can't see oncoming vehicles. We have several near misses. We get multiple complaints on a regular basis about traffic through there, people pulling out in front of other vehicles, and most of them can't see because of that fence that goes along the freeway there. So the poor visibility, the insufficient lighting, the pedestrian traffic concerns, especially when you spoke about a bicycle lane. I don't see anywhere where that's a bicycle lane. I see most of the bicycles on the sidewalk because they can't use the bicycle lane.
Those are great.
Yeah, it's not a safe issue. And pedestrian safety. We have several students that walk across those intersections every day coming to and from school. And they come at multiple times in multiple packs. And with no traffic control or no traffic control devices to control that flow of traffic, they're just walking out anytime they want in front of vehicles. We have vehicles that get frustrated waiting so long as they do. We've got a recipe for a disaster here. And as I said in my document back in 2024, somewhere in that area, we need to take this serious. Yeah, that's a prime example of not being able to see. And actually, if you're down at the level of the car, I'm not sure where that camera came from, but you can't see around that corner there. And people pull out in front of other people on a regular basis. We did do some, I think the city did some traffic camera video footage of several different views, mainly on this intersection going towards Boardman Avenue, because I think that was the intersection that we proposed putting in a traffic control device to try to mitigate some of these issues. But I can tell you from a public safety stance, I have very high concerns there. So those are some of the areas in which I like to see addressed. And of course, we also have aggressive driving that needs to be addressed. And part of that has to do with the law enforcement presence. But if we take out some of these mitigating factors that are causing people to get frustrated in driving like idiots, then maybe we can address some of those issues.
Yeah, thank you for bringing those to everyone's attention. I kind of glossed over a lot of those details, but yeah, everything that you discussed, I think it has a lot to do with kind of the lack of access control in this area. Too many driveways, too many turning movements in a short duration. That's, I think, one of the reasons why the IAMPs are designed to get at these issues. And traffic restrictions, turn movement restrictions, and medians and other treatments can resolve that. But as you well know, it tends to raise the eyebrows of property owners and other things. So there's a balance between trying to maintain safety and operations and traffic flow and keeping businesses viable and easy to connect to. So there's definitely, I think, some ways in which we can try and revisit a lot of these issues going forward. So.
Hey, Matt, this is Jeremy. I'm gonna echo some of what Chief Stokoe brought up. Throw a couple other things. I mean, we've had numerous, usually fender benders. I mean, we haven't had very many high mechanism of entry crashes in that interchange area, on all four corners. We've got people coming off the freeway and rear-ending cars that are stopped on the off ramps. We've got people getting T-boned on Main Street. We've had multiple auto ped, crashes there because you've got the high school and middle school kids crossing that bridge. You've got drivers that are turning without looking. We've had kids hit. One thing that we run into consistently with the interchange area is as we have to start shutting down lanes of travel for operations and for disabled vehicles, we end up shutting down Main Street because we don't have any room to work. Now, you can't have a safe operational area there and still move traffic at times. So we need to, those are things that we need to address. Now, like Chief Stokoe said, the visibility, I'm going to throw the eastbound off ramp in there too. It's horrible. And clear up to coming up to the stop sign in a fire truck, or you're in a high clearance vehicle, you can't see around that corner because of the setback and because of everything right there. Truck traffic is extremely heavy. On a regular basis, I see cars and trucks failing to yield at the stop signs. They're just rolling through there. Back to the oversized, overweight traffic on a regular basis, I see mobile homes being moved through, especially eastbound traffic and modular office trailers and that kind of thing that are having to come up and over. And they just end up either blocking Main Street or going clear or shutting it down and rolling straight across and creating access issues. So, we definitely have a safety issue that has to be addressed, and it's gonna take more, but at the same time, as you're talking about some of these avenues to address that safety issue, we've got to take into account emergency response also. If you start restricting turning and everything, especially if it involves the off ramps, how are we going to move apparatus and response vehicles into certain areas when they're restricted?
Yep. All very valid, great points. Okay, anybody else on the call with some additional thoughts or concerns or things you want to make sure that this planning effort focuses on?
Matt, can I jump in real quick? This is Steven with Public Transit.
Yes, please.
I know I play a small part in this, but I just wanted at the beginning ground phases to kind of let people know the impact that we're having here in Boardman. Over the last year, we've gone from about 10 riders a month to 1,300 just in the city of Boardman running the circular route. So that does create a significant improvement to pedestrian crossings along the corridors there and safety and congestion. So I just wanted to kind of put out there that as we're looking for these us maintaining the ability to get to the essential services and moving quickly through the town doesn't benefit most people in the area, but it does significantly impact the safety of the people who historically in Boardman have been walking around most of the time that are now utilizing public transit. And a lot of that are the youth. Probably about 60% of our ridership is middle school and up.
Are they using it for school commuting, or is it just more normal, just getting around?
Both.
Both. Yeah, that's great to know. I think you guys have made a lot of inroads in transit, not only locally but regionally too. So it's great perspective. Thank you. Any other thoughts or concerns?
I guess my only other question to the folks that are on the PAC, or to the TAC, I should say, I gotta keep my two groups straight here, for this technical advisory committee. When Brandon and I were brainstorming who to ask to participate, we tried to think about all the right players. Is there anybody that we didn't get here to the table that you can think of that we need to be asking these questions of them as well? And again, I'm thinking for this group in similar areas of involvement or expertise. We tried to get emergency services. We tried to make sure the port was engaged. Transit. Is there somebody or something we missed that as just a staff, we can reach out to them and say, hey, we want your input on this as well. Doesn't come to mind today, but tomorrow you're driving around going, geez, Carla should have asked Joe to come. Well, then let me know which Joe and I'll get him involved. So, yeah.
Carla, would including I'm sorry, I can't remember the the school transportation company, would they be as much as they travel around and make odd stops, especially along the main corridor there, they might be someone who have input.
That's a great one. Thank you. Appreciate that, Steve.
Okay, well, speak up if think of anything else. I promise I'll get you out of here by 3:30, so kind of keep us moving. If you spend a little time in Tech Memo 1, you'll see that we had identified some evaluation criteria that we'll use to kind of weight and assess ideas for how to improve some of the issues that we've been noting here today. Kind of looking at it in the highest levels: traffic operations, freight accommodations, multimodal accommodations, access spacing, access to commercial properties, implementation in the confines of, okay, whatever we come up with, how do we build it? How does it affect, how can it be implemented in a way that doesn't shut Boardman down while, potentially interchange is being rebuilt or expanded or widened or modified significantly? And then as previously alluded to, how do we pay for it? So whatever ideas we come up with, we'll identify some more significant cost.
With that implementation one, as much as, how do we build it when we get there, would that also address maybe phasing of improvements?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I think expectation is this is a planning effort here. We're not building something, we're not designing something, we're just trying to lay the foundation for something to have happened down the road. But if the idea that we come up with is a brand new interchange and you got to rebuild the whole thing and it can't be rebuilt in phases, right? That might limit its significance as a viable concept. So yes, phasing definitely is a piece of that implementation.
Perfect. Thanks.
Okay. So yeah, I think so. If you had a moment, take a peek through the rest of the tech memo. We kind of hit upon a lot of it today in these slides. But I definitely would appreciate any additional, more precise comments and thoughts. We've taken some notes. We'll add in some things that we've heard today. And we'll get that memo updated. But like I said, based on our schedule, we've got no time to waste. So we're going to jump right into the next phase of this project. So we'll finalize tech memo. Tech memo 1, assuming we get some comments back throughout this week or very early next week, we'll get it turned around and finalized by the 19th. And then we're going to start in the interim working on some evaluation criteria and start to put together some concepts. That'll be part of tech memo 2, and then we'll come back in mid-ish July, mid to late July, and we'll review the content of that memo. So we're going to go pretty snappy and pretty quick here. So you'll be given more direction and timing on the next meeting when we find the right time, but plan for it to be in mid-July. And I understand we're moving into the heart of vacation and travel season for a lot of folks. So if you happen to be out during the time in which we've selected, we'll do our best to accommodate all that, but recognize we won't be able to get everybody. So if you've got a colleague or someone you can send in your place that might be aware of or could be helpful at the next meeting, if you can't make it in July, please try and do so. Okay, so I'm just going to leave you with a couple of things. Now, I know these have been shared in the past. I know people have seen these. These were just some sketches that we did for the city, about 3-4 years ago, even before the TSP. We were just noodling with different ways in which we could potentially modernize or upgrade interchange to kind of deal with some of its capacity limitations, geometric limitations. I'm only showing these to you because I know some people know they exist, and I know they generated a lot of thoughts and comments previously, but I wanted to just kind of give you an idea of kind of what level of sketching and what level of detail that we're going to strive for in this effort, at least from an interchange design standpoint. We're not here to design the interchange and fully rebuild it, but we want to make sure that if we're talking about concepts and ideas, that we're presenting things at a level that the layperson can visualize and understand. So I'm just repositioning these images on the screen here so that you can kind of see what we're going to be striving for. But this one on the left was just, okay, can we just widen the overpass, get a 3-lane section on the overpass? Can we redo the on and off ramps? Can we get the geometries organized in a way where you could potentially signalize these ramp terminals? And what does it look like to turn Front Street and North and South Front Streets into right in, right outs with median control? And then what does that do at the adjacent upstream and downstream intersections? So this looks very simple, but just widening that overpass to 3 lanes might be much more challenging than it looks. And so that's just conceptually what a widened, simplified, signalized interchange scenario might look like. And then here's a couple of roundabout treatments. I think it was Carla who mentioned previously, or maybe it was Teresa, that when the 2009 IAMP was completed, roundabouts were nothing new in the geometric world, but I think there's been a much greater acceptance of those traffic control treatments today than there ever has been. And so much so that I think roundabouts will and should be given their due as potential modifications and treatments. And one of the nice things about a roundabout is potentially, according to these sketches, but I know there's a lot of detail missing here, but if you did look at different roundabout forms, perhaps you don't need to widen the overpass beyond its current 2-lane configuration, because it does turn the left turns, it eliminates the need for left turn queuing and storage. So that might be a way in which, some more modern geometric thinking could absolve some of the control issues here. And then, going to larger roundabouts that incorporate both the interchange ramps and the front street intersections. So again, these are just quick sketches that we did to kind of conceptualize or visualize some of these ideas, and this will be the kind of the level of sketching and concept development that we'll be striving for as we go through the alternatives process. So wanted to share those so you can kind of just get a visual of kind of what to expect going forward. And then I think, as we get into some of our other intersections, maybe we can even go so far as to look at some compact roundabout treatments. They're not the be all end all of all solutions, of course, but, if you're talking about to local property owners who are concerned with, what does it mean to put a median restriction on Main Street? It's going to limit my customer's ability to make a left out from either the Chevron or the Sinclair to go back to the interchange. Well, maybe it's a little easier to swallow if you know you can't make the left out, but it's not so much of a trouble to just make a quick U-turn around the roundabout. So, I think those are some ideas and some thoughts that we can now inject into the planning process to try and work with property owners and think about ways that we can absolve some of their concerns regarding out of direction travel. So I know it doesn't solve everything, but perhaps some treatments like that could be looked at. So that's what we're going to be striving for, and how we're going to try and accomplish this update for planning purposes. Any last kind of questions, concerns, thoughts? Otherwise, we can end a few minutes early. Hopefully nobody screenshotted my roundabout sketches and will use them against me down the road.
The room is quiet. Anybody online have any final questions or comments?
But just in terms of schedule, Matt, so you're gonna finalize this memo and then you're gonna have a future memo with some ideas that'll come out before the next meeting, or are we gonna brainstorm at the next meeting, future ideas, or how's the future ideas portion?
Yeah, so I think because of our schedule and our approach, we're going to do our best to come up with a number of ideas, but expect a call from me going forward. I'm going to try and work directly with some of the key folks from ODOT, you, Marlo, and I think it's Brian and Aaron are the two interchange engineers. Is that right? I think they're on the call. So I'll be outreaching to you all as well to kind of get some kind of analysis done on the side before we finalize that or complete the draft of that next memo. We just know we don't have all the time necessary to kind of go through the typical process. So I'll be working with you guys separately. So. Yeah, Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah, just had a question on the traffic analysis. So you got this memo 1 that's out, but doesn't have a traffic analysis with it. And then the next one's the alternative analysis, but when does the actual traffic operations existing and then something to measure against for these alternatives that are going to be considered? When does that?
Yeah, that'll all be part of the next memo. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the forecasting work that we completed as far as the TSP from last year. And then as Kelly kind of pointed out, we've been not we, but the city and ODOT have been receiving any number of development applications recently with some more detailed and specified and sort of higher order commercial retail projects on some of the quadrants of the interchange. We're going to add in some of the traffic loading and demands projections from those projects, and that will all be documented and summarized in the next tech memo so that we can look at what the volume scenarios are actually looking like and how these roundabouts or intersection modification treatments are addressing them. So I'll do my best to kind of summarize all that on the side and get that out to the people that care about that kind of stuff early so that you guys can be looking at it a little more closely. Fair enough.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, and then I think it was, you probably saw in the presentation, so you're the TAC. There's a parallel committee that'll start in about 35 minutes. It's the Public Advisory Committee. So we'll have a kind of a separate committee made up of property owners and interested citizens and other selected individuals that the City Planning Commission and staff had come up with to kind of be the local voice on this planning effort. So you all represent the technical side, and we'll get another layer of review and input from the public and the business owners and property owners. So that will be coming up here shortly, and you'll have access to all the summary materials from that meeting as well. Anything left, Carla?
Yeah. On that note, just to kind of wrap up, I would just share that as with all of our strategic planning work, you can go to the city's website. Under community, you can choose the strategic planning page. And from there, you can follow all of the projects. But this one in particular, it has just been uploaded and has both the TAC and the PAC identified. And both of these meetings, if you're looking for the tech memo, it's there. It was also attached to the email invite, but if you've lost that, you can go to the city's website and find it. And then once these videos are captured back, we will upload the videos to that same location. So if you're curious what the public has to say, or if the public's interested in what you all had to say, you'll be able to watch and populate both. So that will continue. You can always head there and find out what's going on, not just with this project, but with all of the strategic planning projects. So with that, I just want to thank everybody for your time today. I very much appreciate it. Do take a look at that tech memo and get comments back to me sometime in the next week or so. And if any other ideas come to mind about your desired outcomes, or desired income, I don't know.
I would love to address that.
Desired outcomes, send those my way as well. So just thanks to all of you for attending today.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, we're adjourned. Thank you much.